Hello all. It's time to look at another of those underground lines we might have got, but didn't. Today I'm going all the way back to the 1860s to look at the London Central Railway. The London Central Railway was originally called the North Western and Charing Cross Railway. This was going to cross London and connect two major railway companies, the London and North Western Railway at Euston and the South Eastern Railway at Charing Cross. The railway's promoters were very quick off the mark, applying for parliamentary assent on the 27th of November 1863. Now, to put that into perspective, the first ever underground railway, the Metropolitan, had only opened on the 9th of January that year. It wasn't really intended as what we would now understand as an underground line, i.e. a railway completely separate from the mainline companies. The idea was that it would be jointly operated by the South Eastern and the London and North Western Railways, who would run their own trains over the line. It would also connect with the Midland Railway, which ran from nearby St Pancras, and the Metropolitan Railway between what are now Great Portland Street and Euston Square stations. Incidentally, back then those stations were called Portland Road and Gower Street. The idea was initially quite enthusiastically received, but then disaster struck in 1866. On the 10th of May, Overend Gurney and Company, a reputable bank with a silly name, collapsed. This resulted in the Panic of 1866, which saw wages fall and unemployment rise across Britain and internationally. The widespread discontent would lead to pressure for political reform, but more importantly for the immediate purposes of this video, it led to the collapse of several other banks and immense difficulty for anyone trying to raise money to build, say, an underground railway. Ironically, one of the reasons Overend Gurney and Company had failed was because they put too much money into unsuccessful railway proposals. The North Western and Charing Cross limped on for a bit, but finally threw in the towel in 1869. The following year, however, the scheme was revived. The company would now be called the Euston, St Pancras and Charing Cross Railway. This was approved in August 1871, and the company changed its name to the snappier London Central Railway. But then the scheme ran into the same old trouble again, an inability to raise money. Perhaps investors were wary of a scheme that had already failed once, or perhaps the fact that the new district railway wasn't doing so well financially had convinced them that underground lines weren't the licence to print money they hoped. In 1874, the London Central Railway was once again abandoned, this time for good. It would have been a cut-and-cover line like the Metropolitan and District lines. To minimise cost, it was going to follow the line of roads wherever possible. First, it would follow Tottenham Court Road. Then, a new road would have been built through Soho. 1877 saw the opening of Charing Cross Road, and I'm guessing the proposed road would have followed roughly the same route. The proposed stations changed over time, but it would have started here at Euston. Then a new station would have been built at Gower Street, which you will know as Euston Square, to enable interchange with the Metropolitan line. The next station would have been Goodge Street, then Oxford Street, where the railway crossed said street. Then it would have gone along the new road, and the next station would have been at Leicester Square. The final station would have been at Charing Cross, on the opposite side of the street from the main line terminus, and here it would have come to the surface and joined the South Eastern Railway. Later, perhaps out of desperation to make their line more appealing, the London Central proposed additional stations at King's Cross and St Pancras. You may have noticed something interesting here. With the exception of the late extension to King's Cross and St Pancras, nearly all of these stations can be found on the Charing Cross branch of the Northern Line. I don't know if the builders of that branch were deliberately copying the Central London Railway, but the similarity is curious. In fact, the original proposal for the Charing Cross branch, originally the Charing Cross, Euston and Hampstead Railway, would have ended at Charing Cross. There's no station at Gower Street on the Northern Line, but there is one at Warren Street, which of course is an easy stroll from Euston Square. I quite often end these things by asking if you think this would have been a useful line to have, but the question feels fairly pointless today. Ultimately, give or take a few details, we did get it. The only substantial detail is that it was part of the deep tube network rather than a route for main line trains. In other words, when I say lines that never were, I should really be saying lines that sort of were but weren't quite. And that's not quite so snappy now, is it? Hi all. Thanks for watching this misleadingly titled episode of Tales from the Tube. I don't have a question to ask here. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like, subscribe if you want more, share if you're moved to do so. Everything helps. And I'll see you soon for another tale from the Tube.